Hello everybody, I'm Dr. Somya Jhawar. I'll be your faculty for obstetrics and gynecology. Let me introduce myself first. I'm Dr. Somya. I'm a MBBS, MS and DNB OBGY. I am also a fetal medicine consultant in Mumbai, and from here on I'll be taking obstetrics for y'all. So without further ado, let's start the topic. The first topic that we are going to be discussing together is multifetal gestation. Now, multifetal gestation obviously talks about twins, triplets, and so on, but twins more importantly and more specifically. Now, all of us love looking at twins. It's exciting to look at them. They are so adorable. So, let's discuss them in detail and let's see how it actually happens at its very level of conception. Now, when we say multifetal gestation, what do you actually mean by multifetal gestation? How do you define a multifetal gestation? Multifetal gestation is any pregnancy in which there are two or more embryo or feti occupying the uterus simultaneously. So now there are a few keywords in this definition. Let's start looking at them. I'm saying in which there are two or more. Matlab, it can be 2, 3, 10, any number. It comes under multifetal gestation. Embryo or feti. Which essentially means that at its very level of conception, if at that point there were two zygotes to begin with, and then maybe one zygote did not survive, but if it has been documented once that at its very conception there were two embryos or two feti, then this will get categorized as a multifetal gestation. Hence, very important to say embryo or feti occupying the uterus simultaneously. As in, simultaneously means at the same exact time. Okay. So now we've defined multifetal pregnancies. We've said it is any two or more embryos or feti occupying the uterus simultaneously. We said we are saying embryo or feti because even if it's a very small feti, that was initially there were two feti and then maybe one didn't survive, we will still categorize it as a multifetal gestation. Okay. Then we are saying how many, like what is the frequency of multifetal gestation? Out of all pregnancies, how many end up being a multifetal gestation? So it is about 1%. 1% of all pregnancies are multifetal gestations. Now, since we are on the topic of frequency, as in the incidence of something, let us discuss this very important rule called Helen's rule. Now, what does Helen's rule states? Helen's rule helps us in understanding the frequency of a particular multifetal gestation. Now, like we said earlier, multifetal to can be twins also, triplets also, quadruplets, pentuplets, any number. So now, Helen's rule states twins ka frequency is 1 in 80. Triplets ka frequency is 1 in 80 into 80. So just think logically, what will quadruplets be? It will be 1 in 80 into 80. Correct? So when you are looking at this formula, can you derive an algorithm? Can you derive a basic formula? Now I know we're all medical students. Math may or may not be our favorite subject, but this is very easy. Okay? I'm saying if n is the number of feti, then the frequency of a pregnancy occurring with n number of feti is 1 into, sorry, 1 in 80 raised to the power n minus 1. Let's apply this here in quadruplets. n is 4 because there are 4 feti. तो इसका frequency इसके कारण इस algorithm के according कितना होगा? 1 in 80 n minus 1, right? We are saying n minus 1, which is 1 in 84 minus 1, which is 1 in 80 raised to the power 3. So that is 1 in 80 into 80 into 80, which is this is the same as this. Got it? So this is the Helen's rule. This 1 in 80 raised to the power n minus 1. Now when you're talking about twins, there are certain definitions that you absolutely must understand. And please see, I'm saying understand and not rote learn, not ratta this definition. Aap samajhiye, so then twins will become a very easy topic for you. Now, one of those definitions is zygosity. We talk so much about monozygotic, dizygotic, but what does it mean? Zygotic means how many zygotes were there at the very conception, at the origin. Did it start off with one zygote or two zygotes? Obviously, di means two. So when we say dizygotic pregnancy, we mean that at the very conception, at the very beginning or conception, there were already two zygotes. And here mono obviously means one. So we are saying in monozygotic pregnancies, at the very beginning, there was only one zygote. And then maybe it's split to form how many ever number of feti that are there right now. But at the very beginning, at the very conception, there was only one zygote. Okay, we'll talk about this in a lot of detail, but just to introduce the definition and the basic understanding of it to you. Now let's see chorionicity. What does chorionicity mean? Chorionicity refers to placentation. What do we mean by placentation here? We mean that whether the placenta is shared between the twins or is it separate? Is it a shared placenta or is it separate? Now if you're saying it's separate, then obviously there are going to be two placenta. And if you're saying it's shared, then there's going to be one. Now if you're saying there's one, then it's obviously monochorionic. And if you're saying two, then it's going to be di, meaning two, chorionic, meaning placenta. So chorionicity refers to placentation. Let's quickly revise. Zygosity means origin of zygote, which means at the very beginning, was there one zygote or two? If there was one zygote, we call it monozygotic. If there were two, we call it dizygotic. Then we say chorionicity. Chorionicity refers to placentation. Placentation essentially means whether the placenta is shared or is it common. If it is shared, then there's obviously going to be one placenta, which will make it monochorionic. Chorion, which means placentation, and dichorionic means there are two placenta. Now these are two definitions that are very often asked and students very often get confused between them. One is superfetation and the other is superfecundation. What does superfetation mean? Superfetation means two oocytes that are fertilized by two sperms in one cycle. And superfecundation means two oocytes fertilized by two sperms in two cycles. Now this is a bit of a definition that you sort of need to learn. So let's find ways to make it easier for you to remember and not make any mistakes in these straightforward questions. Now see, superfecundation. Fecundation has a C. Yeah, and cycle also has a C. So now there are, to begin with, ये cycle में भी ऐसे तो दो C है, but let's focus on the starting C and this one. If there are two C's here, so that means two cycles. There is no C here in fetation. There is only one cycle ka C, so that means one cycle. These are just ways to make it easier for you and help you remember these definitions. Now, types of zygosities. What do you mean by monozygotic and dizygotic? We have already discussed. Now I'm simply going to talk about the exact process through which these twins get formed. Now in dizygotic, if you notice, like we said, there are two zygotes to begin with. This is one and this is the second. Now this is one egg that was fertilized by this sperm, and here there is a completely separate egg that was fertilized by a completely separate sperm, making two different zygotes. One zygote and two zygotes. Now this one zygote and two zygote go on to form genetically distinct pair of twins. So dizygotic twins are genetically distinct. Yeah, they are like siblings who are simply sharing the uterus simultaneously at the same time. Their genetic material is as common as two siblings who were born 5 years apart. इनमें बस ये हुआ है कि that both the siblings are occupying the uterus at the same time. Dizygotic twins were two different zygotes from the very beginning. Now, when you are saying, just think about it logically. What is going to be more common, dizygotic or monozygotic twins? How many identical twins do you know? Very few. But you may know a few dizygotic twins. Now, dizygotic twins are also called as fraternal twins. They are also known as fraternal twins, and dizygotic twins are more common. Now tell me the frequency of dizygotic twins. How often do they occur? Remember, we spoke about a certain rule, Helen's rule. They occur 1 in 80 pregnancies. Okay? Dizygotic twins will occur in 1 in 80 pregnancies. Now, in which population do you think, in who do you think dizygotic twins are more common? Is there a subpopulation in which they will be more common? Who has a higher propensity to conceive dizygotic twins? Let's talk about that. I'm going to just, erase this to make some space. Assuming you have written it. Now, dizygotic twins are more common in mothers who have increased parity, higher parity, which means mothers who are pregnant for the third or the fourth or the fifth time as compared to mothers who are pregnant for the first or the second time. So as the mother's parity increases, the propensity for having these twins increases. That is one. The second is increased maternal age. As the age of the mother increases, the propensity to have these dizygotic twins will also increase. Third very important one is any ovulation induction drugs that are used or in IVF pregnancies. In ovulation induction drugs, multiple ovums may get released. So there is a higher chance for these ovums to get fertilized by two different sperms, hence making a dizygotic pregnancy. Now there are certain that believe that maternal obesity also predisposes you to dizygotic twins. And the last one is family history. किसका? Maternal या paternal? We are saying maternal family history more importantly. Predisposes you to having dizygotic, genetically distinct, fraternal twins. ठीक है? Good enough. Now, if you're saying that dizygotic twins there are these factors that can cause an increase in dizygotic twins. So, is there a subpopulation that sees dizygotic twins more commonly than the rest of the world? Yes, there is. Nigerians. Dizygotic twins are most commonly seen in Nigerian population. There are certain papers that say that 1 in 20 pregnancies in the Nigerian subpopulation is dizygotic twins. Okay. So I hope dizygotic twins is by and large clear. Now let's move on to monozygotic twins. Monozygotic twins, like we said, is monozygotic. So that means there is only one zygote at the very beginning. Now this zygote is splitting and forming. Now if it is the same zygote मतलब उसका egg and sperm तो same है. When egg and sperm is the same and it's the same zygote that's splitting into two, then obviously these twins are going to be genetically identical twins. And hence they will also phenotypically look identical. So they will be called identical twins. Now the one thing I want you all to remember is monozygotic twins do not follow the Helen's rule. They are rare. Identical twins are rare. Unka frequency is roughly 1 in 250 pregnancies. 1 in 250 pregnancies is monozygotic twins. These are genetically identical twins. So far so good. We said monozygotic twins are a single zygote. This zygote is splitting. Then this zygote is forming two identical individuals who we refer to as identical twins. And simultaneously their frequency is 1 in 250. Again, monozygotic twins is not following the Helen's rule. And they are forming these genetically identical twins. And we obviously said अगर dizygotic twins का frequency हम 1 in 80 बोल रहे हैं, इसका 1 in 250 बोल रहे हैं, तो dizygotic twins are obviously far more common than monozygotic twins. ठीक है, so far so good. And again, I think we've discussed dizygotic twins in a lot of good detail, so I don't think we need to discuss this too much, but ठीक है, just quickly, there are two separate zygotes forming two separate morula implanting two in separate spaces, and obviously hence having one amniotic cavity, second amniotic cavity, one placenta, and this is the second placenta. So I am saying that there are two amniotic cavities and two placenta. So जब भी हम बोलेंगे दो amniotic cavity है तो we will call it a diamniotic and dichorionic pregnancy. So this is a DCDA pregnancy. So can we say that all dizygotic twins form DCDA pregnancies? Can we make this a dictum? Yes, all dizygotic pregnancies are going to form dichorionic, diamniotic twins because they are splitting in the very beginning. There's no splitting, sorry. They are two separate beings from the very beginning. Hence, dizygotic twins are always going to be dichorionic, diamniotic pregnancies. Alright, I hope so far everything is clear to you. Now we will move on to monozygotic twins. Now to understand monozygotic twins, you have to understand a little bit about the events post-fertilization. Why? Because we are saying monozygotic twins तो एक ही zygote थे to begin with. And monozygotic twins के there are several types which we are going to talk about. But to understand that why these different types are being formed, we need to know the basics of post-fertilization. Let us just begin that in a second. Okay, now we are discussing events post-fertilization. So हमने कहा कि fertilization तो हो गया है, but let us talk a little bit about this fertilization. Here, this is an oocyte. Okay, oocyte has a dispersed genetic material in the ooplasm. Again, oocyte, right now there's fertilization is not happening. We're just talking a little bit prior to that. Oocyte has a dispersed genetic material in the ooplasm. Now, a sperm, this is a sperm. Now, the sperm is fertilizing the oocyte. Now, when this happens, when the sperm is fertilizing the oocyte, the genetic material of the oocyte condenses to form a pronuclei. Okay, हमने कहा था कि genetic material inside an ovum is dispersed in the ooplasm, and now when fertilization occurs, at that point the genetic material within the oocyte condenses. So now what will happen? Now this is a zygote with two pronuclei. This is pronuclei from the mom, this is the pronuclei from the father. Obviously mother का तो 23x होगा and father का यहाँ 23x या 23y होगा. But for the purpose of this discussion, let's just say that father का भी 23x है. Now, these pronuclei will obviously fuse. And it will form a 46XX genetic material, which means here the two pronuclei are fusing and forming this zygote with the mixed genetic material. When this genetic material mixes, that is when it is decided which characteristics are going to come, which is the good, which is the bad. At this level it gets decided. Now there is this zygote. What is going to happen post this zygote formation? This zygote will split into two cells. So this is called the two-celled stage. Now since I don't have space, I'm going to erase what we have written in the beginning. I hope you all have all taken it down. What so far we have discussed, I'll quickly recap it for everybody. There is an oocyte. Oocyte has dispersed genetic material in the ooplasm. Only when the sperm fertilizes this oocyte is when this oocyte ka genetic material gets condensed into a pronuclei, and eventually with the sperm ka pronuclei and the oocyte ka pronuclei, they will fuse. When they fuse, they form a zygote, and this zygote has obviously a 46XX propensity, and now this zygote will further divide and it will form two cells within it, and this is called the two-celled stage. Now let me go on further. Now we were at the two-celled stage. Now this is going to divide more and it's going to form four cells. So this is called the four-celled stage, and this occurs at day 3 post fertilization. Okay. Now from here, what is going to happen? A morula will form. Now what is a morula? Morula is a cell stage of 16 to 32 blastomeres. And from here there will be a structure formed that will have an inner cell mass, and that will also have a trophoectoderm, and there will be a blastocele cavity, and this is called a blastocyst. Now what day does this blastocyst form? It forms on day 5. Now after this blastocyst has formed, it undergoes something called hatching. Yes, humans also hatch. Now in hatching, this blastocyst cavity opens and the contents go out. Now iska content kya hai blastocyst ka? There is obviously an inner cell mass and a trophoectoderm. Let's call this TED and ICM. The inner cell mass, which we are referring to the ICM, here forms the fetus, and the trophoectoderm forms the placenta. Okay. Now, why I have described all this? So that I can conceptually teach you how exactly are MCDA twins formed. Again, I want to quickly discuss this post-fertilization event. After the zygote is formed, it splits into two, which is this. 2-cell stage. This 2-cell stage goes on to split more to form a something called a 4-cell stage. Now when this 4-cell stage occurs at day 3, now when it is occurring at day 3, there are blastomeres formed. There is something called a morula that is formed. I have not written. If you want, I will write that for you. 16 to 30 blastomeres के stage को morula बोलते हैं. So after this 4-cell stage, morula is formed, which has 16 to 32 blastomeres, and then this morula goes on to further become a blastocyst. Blastocyst में there is a inner cell mass and then there is a trophoectoderm. This inner cell mass, and then obviously there is a blastocele cavity, and this forms on day 5. And then after everything, this blastocyst opens up, which is called hatching. Hatching may the contents go out and the inner cell mass forms the fetus and the trophoectoderm forms the placenta. I hope so far everything is clear. Okay. Now we will continue the rest of it in the second part of this lecture.